There are great games, and then there are games that actually created something special. If you've watched my videos before, you know that I am a big believer that you can't appreciate video games without first discussing where they have been. That absolutely applies to the next five genres that we are going to discuss. Sometimes it's going to be clear how one game created an entire genre. Other times, honestly, it's a little bit more subjective. However, the five old games that we're going to talk about are quite literally genre creating video games that some of us completely fell in love with. And let's start with a huge genre, MMORPGs, or massively multiplayer online role playing games. This genre involves multiplayer games that have persistent communities, level progression, and an ability to interact with others across a virtual world. They usually offer quests, missions, and the ability to create a character and then follow that character for your entire game journey. The numbers are enormous. Games like World of Warcraft, Old School RuneScape, and Final Fantasy XIV all boast an average daily player count of more than 1.2 million, and they are barely scratching the surface of the total amount of games that are out there. So, this genre is newer, but that's largely because the technology that created them really only evolved in the past few decades. Or at least became technologically steady, commercially affordable, and didn't involve you begging your stupid little sister not to pick up the phone for 20 damn minutes so that you could finish that rate. Okay, fine, sorry. Anyway, so which of these games came first? Like a lot of these categories, it's a little hard to define. There were a variety of early MMORPGs that had some of the features mentioned. Examples included Maze War, Island of Kesmai, and Neverwinter Nights. However, it took major internet changes to truly open up MMORPGs to the world. Remember, the internet was originally a project of government and academic institutions that was intended to promote research and knowledge exchange. As the internet opened more, so did technological investments. In 1995, internet infrastructure changed to a more regional and private sector controlled apparatus. In other words, money! And money for game developers. Developers immediately leapt into the void, and with it came some great games. And that led to what many would consider the first MMORPG, Meridian 59. The game differed from a lot of MMORPGs in a few ways. Chief among them, there wasn't leveling up or classes. Instead, there were attributes like hit points and mana points that developed independently. Meridian 59 was largely centered around player versus player combat in your standard medieval environment. It allowed players to advance in certain weapons or magic schools. You could also fight other monsters to gain experience and items. What made Meridian 59 so unique was that it implemented or sharpened many of the MMORPG features you see today. There were guilds, an in game messaging system, forums, and a variety of expansions that gave additional features. More importantly, is that Meridian 59 was the first three dimensional MMORPG. So, Meridian 59 was developed by the 3DO Company, a well known developer from the 1990s that was founded by Trip Hawkins, the legendary founder of Electronic Arts, before it was evil. Now, believe it or not, you can still play Meridian 59 today. It's available for free on Steam. Quite the switch from when it's charged a monthly fee, as was once and still sort of is the model for MMORPGs. But if you do play, don't expect to run into many others. As I record this, there are 16 players playing the game right now. That being said, this is still kind of amazing. The first ever three dimensional MMORPG, which came out in 1996, is still around and active, almost 30 years later. All right, so next, I want to talk about my personal favorite genre, roguelikes. This genre might be a little more niche to some of you, but as someone who is utterly obsessed with this genre, specifically games like Enter the Gungeon or Slay the Spire, I love talking about this genre. Roguelikes are procedurally generated dungeon crawls. As the player, your job is usually to explore a dungeon and reach some goal, like beating an enemy or making it to the exit. The catch is that the dungeon changes via procedural generation. As such, you are given a brand new level every time you play. More to the point, games come with permadeath. When you die, you die. And while there may be some limited restarting options, like you could start at a certain checkpoint, maybe, you usually start right back at the beginning. What makes this genre so interesting is that they usually come with unlockable features. For example, in Enter the Gungeon, you unlock more weapons as you play, meaning that you have a better chance each run of completing the game. More popular roguelikes include games like Returnal, which is an incredible bullet hell third person shooter for the PS5. So, what is the first roguelike game? Well, Are you wondering why they're called roguelikes? This is one of those genres, like Metroidvania, where the name came directly from the game. Say that 5 times fast, and you will probably be in pain. Anyway, 1980 saw the release of Rogue, Exploring the Dungeon of Doom. As the player, you are seeking the Amulet of Yendor, located in the dungeon's lowest level. Of course, every enemy under the sun is trying to kill you, but fear not, as you can pick up weapons, scrolls, and other items that can help you along your journey. The game is a dungeon crawl that takes place in a grid like pattern. It's also turn based, so you don't need fast reflexes, but you do need a sharp mind. The game operated like an RPG. However, somewhat historically for the time, the game used procedural generation. As such, each run was a new one. In addition to the procedural generation, this game helped implement a variety of features we now take for granted. This includes increasingly difficult level design, the ability to save games and potentially save scum, meaning that you reload a save if you die. And I also need to talk about the graphical interfaces in this game because it's honestly incredible. Again, we're talking about a 1980 game, so it's not like computers had anything even vaguely resembling the processing power that they do today. Dungeons looked like this. Each character in the game, including you and your enemies, was represented by a keyboard character. For example, zombies were the letter Z, and you were the @ sign. Now, let's completely switch gears and scare the crap out of you. It's time to talk about survival horror. Horror games are nothing new, and the idea of playing a game designed to cause frights can be incredible for those of you who like that sort of thing. Survival horror is a little different. You aren't just playing a ghost story, you are supposed to survive. These games are largely psychological. The environment is critical to this genre. It's almost always dark, damp, hidden, covered in fog, and maze like. You never know what will be around the corner. Weapons are usually sacred or difficult to acquire. You are under some sort of constant attack and made to feel as small and vulnerable as possible. Given these challenges, it was really difficult for this genre to even get created before the technology available to support it existed. After all, it's hard to be scared by blocky pixels, right? Okay, so that actually depends on your definition of pixels. Horror games have been around since the literal first home console system, when the Magnavox Odyssey premiered Haunted House. However, the technology was so new that you literally had to plaster an overlay over your television screen to build the game environment. The first real survival horror game, and the creator of this genre, is a game called Sweet Home. And what's even more impressive is that this game came out in 1989 for the Nintendo, well, really the Famicom. And it came out 7 years before Resident Evil, the first game that really popularized this genre, came out. Sweet Home is based on a Japanese horror film. The game is an RPG, and you play as one of 5 players, each of whom has items that are necessary to solve the final mystery. You play as a film crew that is exploring a mansion where you are supposed to be finding frescoes for a movie set. However, despite the age of the game, it has all of the hallmarks of survival horror. There are cinematic cutscenes, puzzles that need to be solved, backtracking that has to happen, and a haunted mansion that is replete with monsters and ghosts that are absolutely trying to kill you. The game emphasizes puzzle solving and inventory management rather than just violence. There's also an intricate story that even has some optional puzzle elements like diary notes and secret missions. Like any role playing game, members of your party can die. Unlike most role playing games, when they die, they stay dead. Because the game uses permadeath, the endings that you would get would change based on your progress through the game. There are 5 characters, so you had up to 5 endings. Does this game not sound familiar? Unfortunately, there's no wonder for that because it only came out in Japan. However, you probably did hear of the game it directly inspired, Resident Evil. Savvy listeners will note the parallels between the games: haunted mansion, puzzle solving, intricate plot, cinematic cutscenes, all that. Resident Evil, which started development in 1993, was supposed to be a straight up remake of Sweet Home. However, Capcom had lost the license for Sweet Home, so they went in a different direction and instead created a brand new franchise. For most fans of survival horror, Resident Evil was your introduction. But Sweet Home is the true creator of this genre. Let's go on to a happier, more upbeat theme: drowning people in swimming pools by removing the ladder. Life simulation games are games that are about, simulating life. Your job in these games is to create life, to maintain it, to watch it grow, to mold its very existence based on a variety of circumstances that you would often have control over. Obviously, this includes legendary games like The Sims, which allow you to manage every aspect of the life of a simulated human or their family. You maintain their relationships, dress them up, follow their careers, and torture them, if you're into that sort of thing. Weirdo. So, how old is this genre? The answer is about 40 years. The first life simulation game was Little Computer People, developed by Activision and available for the computer and some home console systems in 1985. The entire game looked like this: a sideways view of a three-story house. In the game, you are a researcher who's observing the life of your little computer people. As you can see, the main character moves around, going about his life, and generally acting as if you're not there. Where things get interesting, and I do use that word loosely, is when you can interact with a person. You have the opportunity to interact with the little people and tell them to do certain things, like type a letter to you. They can tell you about their lives, their feelings, and more. You can also feed your character, make sure that they have enough water, and monitor their facial expressions to track their mood. Like The Sims, you can also give your character gifts, like records or books. The game was procedurally generated to an extent. Each character had their own feelings and experiences, so it wasn't as if you'd get the same character over and over again. That led to a game that at least didn't completely repeat itself. So, obviously, there's no complex systems at work here, no relationships to be managed, and no opportunities to kill your little people in a glorious, glorious fire. Instead, all you really had was a chance to engage in some limited interactions and observe a fictional life. Calling this game a game is a little bit of an overstatement. It's kind of an experimental simulator. However, it did make a major impact on the genre. In fact, the impact was so direct that Will Wright, the creator of The Sims, specifically said he played this game as a kid. When he first created The Sims, he got feedback from Richard Gold, who designed Little Computer People. Last, I want to talk about the game genre that has the most frustration, in my opinion: stealth games. Stealth games are designed around the idea that you must be creative, sneaky, and at least know a little bit of everything happening in the universe. Your job is to avoid the bad guys while completing objectives like murdering that guy or stealing that red orb of power. Some such nonsense. Games like Metal Gear Solid and Hitman are known for the stealth genre. These games emphasize creativity rather than fast reflexes or brute force. This genre might have the oldest game, and I cannot believe that this actually got made in 1979. I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Forgive me if I screw it up, but it's a Japanese game called Manbiki Shounen, or Shoplifting Boy. The object is simple. You enter a store, see, that's you over there, shoplifting boy, and have to steal as much as possible from the store in question while also avoiding the shopkeeper. This involves the need for relatively quick movement to avoid getting in the shopkeeper's line of sight, which ends the game. The game was published and available for order in RAM magazine and never saw a major commercial release. However, it still made a huge impact. In fact, it made a very direct impact. The game was developed by Hiroshi Suzuki, who presented the game to Taito, a Japanese developer. As best I can tell, the game never got widespread release, but the mechanics taught Taito how to develop similar games. That led to the development of Lupin 3. A year after the development of Shoplifting Boy, Suzuki came out with a sequel, Shoplifting Girl. Oy. More games, including Castle Wolfenstein and 005, would incorporate standard stealth elements later down the line. The rest, as they say, is history. As always, I find this stuff fascinating. Video game genres have truly evolved over time, and in some cases in decidedly unexpected and hilarious ways. What I find most interesting is this: in most cases, you can draw a line from the first game of a genre to where that genre is today. More to the point, the ideas themselves usually didn't change that much. All that really happened is that the technology got better and gave developers a chance to make more innovative games. I cannot wait to see what happens for video games in the future. And on that note, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, whatever. It not only helps me, but it makes sure that you will continue to get this video content. Thank you so much. As always, I hope you liked watching this video as much as I liked making it. Have a great day.